Welcome back to Finnish Made Easier. Today we're going to be talking about comparative adjectives. And just like it sounds like, comparative adjectives are used when comparing certain things to other things. So when we want to say that some noun is more of something than something else, we're going to use comparative adjectives. And so these are similar to the ER ending in English. So things are like cooler or bigger or slower. That ER at the end of words is really similar to what we're going to talk about in Finnish today. In Finnish, instead of ER, our ending is going to be MPI. And in a lot of ways, it acts in a very similar way to that ER, that it makes it more of that. Of course, in English, not every single comparative ends in ER. We have words like worse, or some words like important can't really have ER. We don't say importanter. We say more important. But in Finnish, all of those are going to be in the MPI ending. So when we say more, or we have the ER, they're all going to be MPI. So the more important and bigger are both going to just be the same formation in Finnish. So the way to form it is pretty simple. Again, it's just this MPI ending, and it's mostly pretty normal, except for with words that have just two syllables and end in an A. So it could be the normal A or the A with the dots. These are going to be our only ones that act a little bit weird, so I'm going to talk about them first. If the word we want to add MPI onto is two syllables and it ends in an A, to add this MPI, which is similar to, again, the ER, we're just going to have to change the A to an E, and then we can just put the MPI on there and soften. So see how this works? I got a few examples here. So like the word hauska, which is like fun or funny. Since it's two syllables, hauska, and it ends in A, we can follow these rules. So we change the A to an E, so we get hauske, and then we add MPI, hauskempi. And then there's no need to soften because SK doesn't soften. Whenever there's an S, we don't soften. If you need to learn about softening, or it's also called kopete, if you've heard of that, I've got a video on that. I'm not going to really talk about how that works today, but I've got a video on that if you're curious. But so hauska, which we can say is like funny, goes to hauskempi, which is going to be like the word funnier. And we're going to talk about how to use these in sentences in just a minute. I just wanted to talk about forming them first, and then we'll talk about how to use them. But we got, so hauska goes to hauskempi, so this is like funnier, funny, funnier. Again, it's MPI, similar to that ER. Let's do a few others. Vahva is like strong. And again, follows the same pattern. Vahva, two syllables, ends in an A. So we're going to follow these special rules. We just change that A to an E. Vahve, and then add the MPI. B, and HV also doesn't soften, so we don't need to worry about that. We get vahvempi is stronger. And lastly, köyhä, which is like poor. Just go to the same thing since it's köyhä, two syllables, and ends in A, of course. You can change it to, whoops, that's an H. Köyhä, and then add the MPI. B, so we get köyhempi is like poorer, or more poor. So yes, funny, strong, and poor, funnier, stronger, and poorer. That's kind of how we do those. For all of the rest of the words besides this special category, we're going to do just the exact normal process that we do with all cases and endings, which is just that we're going to find the stem, we're going to add our MPI, and since it is consonant, consonant, vowel, we are going to soften like normal. So this is, again, the normal process when we're adding any ending. It's only these ones that are special with MPI specifically, but the rest are just going to work like normal. So this one we have tärkeä, which is important. And again, this does end in A, but it's not two syllables. You have to remember it's only the two syllable words that use this rule. So tärkeä is also just going to work like normal because tärkeä is three syllables. Its stem is the same, so we can just add MPI, and RK doesn't soften. So we can just basically add it onto the end there. Tärkeämpi. And again, this is important. Sometimes words don't always have ER in English, but they usually will have the MPI in Finnish. So like we don't say important-er, we say more important, but in Finnish we're still going to use the MPI, tärkeämpi. You can just think it means also more important. This next one, helppo, which is easy. Again, find the stem. The stem's the exact same, add MPI, and this one will soften. The double P will soften down to a single P. So we're gonna get helpompi, like that, with just one P, and then I just added that on to the end. Helpompi, so this is easy, this is easier. And this last one, iloinen, which is like happy. Again, just follow these same steps since it's doesn't end in A. So first we'll find the stem. If you don't know how to find stems of nouns and adjectives, I've got some videos on that, so you can watch those if you don't know how to do that. But for this kind, our stem is going to be iloise, and then we add the MPI, and S doesn't soften, so we get iloisempi as our final word. So this is happy, and this is like happier. So again, these are pretty simple, I think, to form. They're very useful for comparing. A few exceptions I wanted to talk about that are very common are, of course, hyvä, which is good. If we want to say, this is also kind of an exception in English, we don't say gooder, we say better, which is pretty different. It's also pretty different in Finnish. We have hyvä, and then it goes to parempi. So parempi is better. Very different than hyvä. So just know that you don't say hyvämpi, you say parempi. And then for this one, pitkä, which means like tall or long. It also works a little bit special, where it's going to be pidempi. And I see that one used a decent amount, so I figured that was worth a mention as well. So parempi and pidempi are going to be our exceptions, so keep those in mind. But yes, so that's how to form them. They're very simple. I'm now going to switch up the board a little bit, and we can talk about how to actually use these comparatives in sentences, because they're really useful, and sometimes they can work a little bit interestingly. So I'm going to switch up the board real quick, and we can talk about that. All right, I've changed up the board a little bit. And this is where we're going to be talking about how to use comparatives. So I've got these 3 sentences here, and you might notice I have the same 3 sentences in both of these sections. And the reason why is because there's 2 ways that we can use comparative words in a sentence. You can learn either one and use that one, but I want to teach both for sure so you can understand both, because you're going to hear both of them. So we have this one, queen, which is like the word than in English, like right here as you see, than. It's used in all of them in English. Or there's the second one I'm going to talk about in a minute. They're both really interesting. So this first one is going to be a lot more similar to how we word it in English. Or again, we're going to use this queen, than. So like in English, we might say, I am faster than you, red is better than blue, etc. We have something is, like red is, he is, I am, our comparative, our word for than, and then what it's like better than, worse than, faster than. That's kind of how we do it. We're going to do the same thing in Finnish if we want to word it in this way. So it's very easy, very convenient. So for example, we have I am, we have olen, faster, fast is nopea. So we can, to make it faster, we can just add that MPI, as we saw from before. Olen nopeampi, then we get than, which is queen, and then just you, sinä. Olen nopeampi kuin sinä. Again, this style is very, very similar to English. It lines up almost perfectly, which is very nice. This next example, red is better than blue. Very similar. We get red, punainen, and then is, on, better. We saw it was parempi. And then we get our queen again, than, and then just write blue. Sininen. Punainen on parempi kuin sininen. Red is better than blue. Very nice. And just one more example. He is weirder than me. We get he is hän, and then is on, then weird is outo. So we can just add MPI, but we're going to have to soften that T to a D. So we get oudompi, just from the rules from before. Hän on oudompi, and then just again, queen, minä. So if you want to form all your comparatives this way, this is a great way to form it, very common. and lines up just perfectly with English, so it's very nice. And again, these are just very simple comparative sentences. I'll have a video later about putting cases on comparatives where things can get a little bit more interesting and you can open up a lot more sentences. But with just a very simple comparative sentence, like something is comparative than something else, you can word it just like English the same way. But there is another fancy way that is also used, so it's really important to know it at least for understanding, or if you want to use it, then that's great too. And that is to use the partitive case. So I have some videos on how to form partitive and use partitive. If you don't know how to form it, then I would watch those at some point, but I'll just explain how it works and you can figure it out. But how this is going to work, we're actually going to not use the word queen, which is kind of interesting because in English we always use than in this type of sentence. But what we're going to do instead is we're going to take this word after queen. So whatever we're comparing our first word to, and we're going to put it in partitive, in the partitive case, and then we're going to move it in front of our comparative. So for an example, if we have I am faster than you, we can write olen nopeampi kuin sinä. Or if we put this sinä in partitive, which is sinua, and move it in front of nopeampi, then we get olen sinua nopeampi, which is also a valid way to say this sentence. So either one of these is correct. They seem very, very similar as far as I can tell. So yeah, we can either put what we're comparing it to after a than, or we can put what we're comparing it to before the comparative in partitive. So olen sinua nopeampi means the same thing. Again, this one's very different than how we word it in English, but it's decently common. I see it quite a bit, so very useful to know. If you want to do it with some of these other ones, again, our first word is still going to be at the start. Punainen on. That's always just going to say the same on both of these. But then we're going to put sininen in partitive and move it before our comparative, so parempi in this case. So sininen in partitive is sinistä. So punainen on sinistä parempi is another way to say this sentence. In this last one, he is weirder than me. We're just going to follow that same exact pattern if we can word it this way, or you can just get rid of the queen, put mina in partitive, and move it before orompi. So they're both going to start out with hän on, put mina in partitive, which is minua, and then orompi. Orompi. So yep, again, either of these sentences is valid. This one's a lot more similar to English, so it maybe is better if this is a completely new concept to you to use these, but learn to understand these as well. They're both all over the place and very useful for comparatives. And like I mentioned earlier, I'll have a video coming out soon about how to put cases on comparatives, so these MPI words. And it's going to make it so you can use these in even more sentences, so watch out for that. If you still have questions, be sure to leave them in the comments. I'll also have in the description a nice document with lots of review and examples, like always. So make sure to check that out. But thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Heippa!